I stood in a dim corner of the ballroom, observing a couple swaying on the dance floor, their eyes fixed on each other. As her partner drew her closer, the woman's chest rose and fell, her small frame pressed against his large one. Their movements were graceful, he with the agility of an athlete, she following suit admirably. All eyes were on them, sensing a strong emotional connection, perhaps not love, but certainly more than friendship. Her honey blonde hair cascaded gently as she leaned into him, though her proximity was more a result of his firm grip than her own choice. I might have been envious of their bond if the woman weren't my wife of 11 years, now in the embrace of her boss. Instead, I felt a surge of anger and humiliation. It wasn't the first time we'd attended her company's annual awards banquet, and everyone there knew she was married to me. I noticed people searching for me, anticipating the inevitable confrontation. After 3 dances, they left the dance floor together, joining colleagues at a central table. I watched as she gazed at him with the same fervor she once reserved for me. Though it had been some time since I'd seen that look, the revulsion inside me only grew. All I could think was that the eruption was imminent. The pressure was building, but I just had to hold on a little longer. I grappled with the conflict between my current feelings of fear, hatred, and resentment towards the scene unfolding before me and the love, respect, and trust I once held for my beloved wife. It was a battle I found myself losing despite my efforts to overcome these emotions. Now, I was sinking into despair and self-pity, bowing my head in defeat. Over the past months, I had exerted immense effort to win her back and mend the fractures in our marriage. I meticulously planned date nights, attended to household chores, switched off the TV, and attempted to engage in conversation, only to have her walk away. I left flowers, heartfelt notes, and love-filled cards, only to discover them discarded in the trash. Even sending flowers to her workplace yielded no response. What more could I do but wait? I wondered to myself. Pushing these distressing thoughts aside, I made my way back to the makeshift bar nestled in the corner of the room, standing behind Mary Ann, an acquaintance of my wife's from her previous workplace. "Having a good time?" I asked, striving to appear nonchalant. "I always enjoy these yearly gatherings." "Harold sure does love those free drinks," she responded. I offered a smile and nodded, lifting my empty glass. "Me too. By the way, I haven't spotted Jason's wife around. Any idea where she might be?" I hoped my anxiety didn't betray me. "She always dresses so elegantly and is delightful to converse with." "Oh, didn't Kels mention that today Jason served her with divorce papers?" "I guess she was neglecting her marital responsibilities," Mary Ann blurted out, her words lacking much filter as she reached a certain level of intoxication. I found her lack of restraint rather fitting. "No, I don't think so, especially since it's Friday night and all. We came straight here after I finished work, and there wasn't any time for gossiping. I didn't just stretch the truth, it was a blatant lie. We even took the afternoon off to prepare for tonight." "She had plenty of opportunity to bring it up, but she chose not to," I replied, refilling my Captain and diet and fetching a glass of white wine for Kelsey before making my way over to where she and Jason were standing. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice my approach. "Kels, I brought you a glass of wine," I said, handing her the drink. She jumped slightly at the sound of my voice. "Oh, you startled me," she exclaimed, taking the glass. "Thank you, dear." The rest of us felt increasingly uneasy the longer we lingered. Most people suddenly found the tablecloth quite captivating or discovered something fascinating across the room, avoiding direct eye contact. Others stared, likely pondering my thoughts and how oblivious I appeared. A younger guy, approximately 25 years old, even flashed a grin when he noticed me eyeing the table. We locked gazes for a moment before his smile faded, and he too suddenly found the tablecloth fascinating. Approaching 1 o'clock in the morning, many guests had already departed from the hotel hall, heading home. However, it was evident that Kelsey wasn't quite ready to part ways with her dance partner. "We should probably head home, honey. I still need to drop off the babysitter, and we promised we wouldn't keep her past 2 tonight," I mentioned, realizing I was intruding on her time with Jason. "Sure, okay. I think it's time for us to leave. See you on Monday," she said with a smile. Relief washed over all of us as the awkwardness neared its end. "Jason, it was nice seeing you," I added, extending my hand for a shake, which he returned. He had a firm grip, evidently trying to assert his strength. Standing 3 inches taller than my 6 feet, he was outweighed by about 15 pounds, and I noticed a slight paunch on my stomach. Pressing a bit firmer than usual, I met his gaze, sensing deceit and self-righteousness in his eyes. Eventually, he released my hand and bid us goodnight. I waved to the remaining guests as we exited the room and headed to the car. We remained silent during the drive home, although Kelsey wore a radiant smile. Upon arriving home, Kelsey checked on Caitlin, our 9-year-old daughter, while I settled up with Brittany and prepared to take her home. Upon my return, I headed to the bedroom to find Kelsey, already asleep in bed. After checking on Caitlin, I visited the bathroom before retiring to the spare room for the night. I knew any possibility of closeness between us was out of the question tonight, as I struggled to recall the last time we had been carnal. With my eyes closing, the ceiling was the last thing I saw before slipping into a restless sleep. Rising early on Saturday morning, I mentally went through my checklist for the day. Caitlin was already in the living room engrossed in her shows, and I offered a slight wave from the doorway. "Have you had breakfast yet?" I inquired. "Yep," she confirmed, waving a spoon dripping with milk, splattering drops onto the carpet. "All right, settle down. Mom's still sleeping, and I need to get to work in my office," I reminded her. "Got it, Dad," she replied with unnecessary volume, causing me to chuckle. Around 8:30, I dialed my lawyer's cell phone, knowing he often worked from home on Saturday mornings. "Good morning, Bill. It's Matthew Franks," I greeted. "Morning, Matt. I'm guessing this isn't a cheery call," he responded, already anticipating the nature of the conversation. "You got it. It's time to set the plan in motion. I've learned that Jason served his wife yesterday. Any word if Kelsey has consulted with a lawyer yet?" "I don't think so, but I'll double-check. Let's meet at the coffee shop in half an hour. Make sure to sign and date the forms with my assistant for notarization. We'll file the paperwork first thing Monday morning and serve her at lunch," Bill outlined the plan. "Sounds good to me. See you soon," I confirmed before ending the call. Arriving early at the coffee shop, I offered a faint smile to the person behind the counter before collecting my order and settling into a cozy chair by the fireplace. Lost in thought, I never imagined I'd be divorcing the one true love of my life. It's challenging to pinpoint the exact moment when you realize your comfortable life is unraveling. For me, it was triggered by a traffic ticket, one of those automatic camera checks for running a red light. When the notice arrived in the mail, I chuckled, instantly recognizing it as Kelsey's doing. She always flipped on her headlights when in a rush. I opened the envelope, deciding to silently shed tears instead of speaking. It seemed futile to confront this directly. The photo depicted Kelsey with a man's shoulder and arm visible beside her. Though his face wasn't visible, I knew who it was. Nothing seemed particularly suspicious. She could have been at lunch or a meeting. I checked the date, March 5th, and something about it bothered me. Recalling our text messages, I remembered plans to stop by Mary's after work to pick up clothes for Kate. At the time, it didn't strike me as unusual. Despite my suspicions, I dismissed them, attributing it to Mary's usual generosity. Checking the intersection on Google Maps revealed it was on the opposite end of town from Mary's residence. Still, I tried to convince myself it could be innocent. However, as I pieced together events since late November, doubts grew. Kelsey had kept a low profile, and holiday arguments became commonplace. By January, affection dwindled, and our conversations revolved around work or Caitlin. We no longer discussed our dreams, family vacations, or our future together. Since childhood, I've had a trust fund. Initially, my great-grandfather purchased undeveloped land in the Pacific Northwest, selling portions as the local town expanded. Upon his passing, I inherited proceeds from these sales, boosting the fund. Following my grandfather's pass away, it grew once more. Thankfully, my family's self-sufficiency meant I never had to dip into it. The balance stabilized and even grew slightly through accrued interest. Upon my father's demise, with my mother also deceased, I inherited all family property, merging it with my trust. With our accumulated wealth, we were on the verge of settling for life. However, Kelsey and I continued to work and increase our net worth. In anticipation of retirement, I obtained a prenuptial agreement to safeguard the fund. Throughout our marriage, Kelsey and I regularly updated our prenup and wills. One clause that remained unchanged was the standard divorce clause, delineating asset ownership. We also included a provision for Caitlin's education in case of my pass away or divorce, with specific conditions regarding the circumstances. To ensure preparedness, I maintained access to legal and accounting services. Seeking advice, I reached out to my lawyer for a referral to the best local divorce attorney, scheduling a consultation later in the week to explore my options. Given our sturdy prenup, he remained unworried about potential financial concerns. I clarified that while I wasn't ready to take drastic action yet, I sought guidance on the next steps. Well, Matt, one option is to hire a private investigator to delve into the situation and ascertain if there's cause for concern. Unfortunately, all my PIs are currently tied up with other cases. It'll be several weeks before they can prioritize yours. But I'm not keen on waiting. This is already keeping me up at night. Are there any other avenues we could explore? There is one possibility, albeit a somewhat dubious one. He's trying to turn over a new leaf, but he's not exactly the most trustworthy character. We affectionately refer to him as Larry the Rogue, Bill elaborated. He's a former cop who got the boot due to complaints and some shady dealings. He could get started immediately, but I'm hesitant to recommend a long-term partnership with him. Why the nickname? I inquired with a chuckle. I want to ensure everything is above board, so if we uncover anything, we're on solid legal footing. If we need to proceed, that's fine. Is he legit? I understand he has a knack for obtaining evidence such as detailed photos, videos, emails, and phone conversations that, let's say, tread the fine line of what's admissible in court. But I've heard his findings are ultimately conclusive proof of infidelity, one way or another. All right, as long as it's within legal bounds, we can settle with him for now and transition to a more reputable private investigator in a couple of weeks, I mused. Pausing, I added, do you reckon he can kick things off today? I'll give him a call and find out. I'll keep you posted here in the office. Sound good? I handled a stack of paperwork for both the lawyer and the dubious investigator, facilitated his connection with my accountant, and kept the retainer fee separate from my personal account to ensure Kelsey remained unaware of my actions. I didn't want to alarm her, especially if this turmoil in our marriage was just a passing phase. Meanwhile, amidst these proceedings, I endeavored to mend my relationship with my wife. Life had taught me that significant changes and out-of-character actions usually have underlying causes. Uncertain about what drove my wife's behavior and whether we were beyond reconciliation, I resolved to fulfill my husbandly duties. Taking matters into my own hands, I showered her with affection and aimed to become the epitome of a loving and supportive husband. Yet, my efforts were met with rejection at every turn, signaling that we may have reached an irreversible breaking point. One Thursday afternoon, I was summoned to my lawyer's office to review the findings unearthed by the rogue investigator. I was presented with hours of footage capturing their liaisons, carnal encounters, and apparent bliss as a couple. Accompanied by photographs, call logs, and personal correspondence, the evidence left me both impressed and repulsed by the rogue's methods, affirming the appropriateness of his moniker. I sat there devastated. The idea of Kelsey having an affair with Jason Stanton was inconceivable to me. I could see the appeal of Jason, tall, handsome, and well-built, with a promising career trajectory. Taking charge of Kelsey's department as his personal assistant about a year ago, he had ample opportunity to integrate into her life. A former college baseball star sidelined by a shoulder injury in his senior year, Jason's achievements were impressive, but I never imagined Kelsey allowing him to wedge between us. The weight of it all was crushing. I struggled to breathe, my chest constricted, my vision blurred, and I felt lightheaded. Pushing my chair back, I leaned forward, trying to steady my breath. Inhaling and exhaling deeply, I fought to regain clarity of mind. The sense of loss and emptiness was indescribable. I had lost my confidant, my partner, my lover, and the mother of my child. In that moment, I saw no way forward. Then it worsened. He played back the recording from the day before, revealing why he had gathered us all together. Really? Do you love me? Her voice was tinged with excitement. Yes, my dear. You're perfect. I love you and want us to be a family. You mean you, me, and Caitlin? Exactly. What about Matt and Shannon? We'll divorce them, you'll have Caitlin, and we'll be happy together. A stunned silence followed as Kelsey processed the bombshell her lover had dropped. You really love me, Kels? Yes, absolutely. I hadn't really considered leaving Matt. Consider it for a moment. He can't offer you what I can. You'll be the belle of every ball, part of the elite. You'll experience places and luxuries he could only dream of. I detected the disdain in his tone, picturing the disdainful expression on his face. Losing Kate would devastate him. We're his world. I'll be a far better father than he could ever be. In a year, she won't even want to visit him. Why do you despise him so much? What has he done to you? Her voice held a touch of concern. Truthfully, I wondered the same. He's not worthy of you, Kels. He lacks ambition, content to remain stagnant. He's just a cog enriching someone else. Did you know he's a plant manager? His facility employs 400 people, boasting the highest production and revenue per square foot. I felt a twinge of pride that Kelsey was aware, though I would have preferred this discussion in their own dining room rather than a hotel room.
He's weak, a beta without drive or ambition, never even pursued an MBA. He served his purpose, honey. I could easily crush him any day of the week.
Jason, don't assume you're superior to Matt. He's not weak. You don't know his backstory. He associated with rough crowds and is skilled with firearms. He nearly took a dark path but chose education. That's why he delayed college after high school. Now, she seemed to boast, he's stronger and tougher than you realize. Promise me you won't resort to violence. I don't want either of you getting hurt. Matt's for Kate's sake, and you're for mine. But I'm not. I'm in love with him. I wished it were true. But you replaced him as my man. My love. She paused, pondering. How will it work when we divorce them simultaneously? I need to prepare before serving Shannon. Given her mental health issues and our year-long celibacy, it shouldn't be challenging. I'll split everything 50-50. She's unlikely to object. Okay, but you must file for Shannon before I consult a lawyer. She was resolute. It seemed she aimed to ensure her stability and not risk her comfortable life, even for her true love's sake. Come here, woman, I motioned, requesting the recording be turned off. At this juncture, listening was unnecessary. I glanced at Bill, grappling with how to handle this. You strike first, Matt. But what if she changes her mind? They rarely do that, Mr. Franks, he remarked solemnly. I'm afraid they've reached a point where nothing you do or say will sway them, Bill added. I observed the scoundrel closely for the first time. He appeared to be in his 30s, fit, and his suit was impeccably tailored, quite unlike my preconceptions. Respectful and seemingly insightful, I began to view him more as Larry than the scoundrel. It seemed he genuinely cared, despite being paid for his services. Would you still want her after knowing all this? Larry inquired, echoing Bill's sentiments. You're probably right, Larry, I acknowledged, turning to Bill. Give me a day or two to decide, and I'll be in touch. All right, sounds good, Matt. Shall we draft the documents now and finalize details later, or halt the process if needed? Bill proposed. Yes, let's proceed that way, I agreed. Larry handed me his business card as we concluded. Here's my personal number, Mr. Franks, in case you ever need me. Please, Larry, call me Matt, I insisted. Thank you, Matt. If you decide to pursue revenge, I know some people who could assist. After all, they don't call me Larry the Dastard for nothing, he remarked with a grin. Appreciative but uncertain, I responded, Nice meeting you, Larry. I'll reach out if I need assistance. Though I doubt I could go through with it against Kells, it's reassuring to know I have support if I choose that path. With a smile, Larry bid farewell and departed in his car. Throughout the weekend, I grappled with my decision, struggling to focus on anything else. It seemed Kelsey was oblivious to the gravity of the situation, having already decided our family's fate. Doubt, anger, fear, and disappointment consumed me, particularly the loss of my identity and family. Caitlin's future weighed heavily on my mind, aggravated by the thought of this arrogant man raising her. Emotions ran rampant, leaving me in a fog of confusion until Sunday morning, when clarity dawned. Sitting on the back porch with a pounding headache, it dawned on me that this fate was inevitable, regardless of my resistance. I'd already lost my wife and family. Now, it was a matter of how and on whose terms. The saying, lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way, resonated with me. I refused to step aside or follow these schemers. There was only one option left, to lead. On Monday morning, I phoned Bill. Bill, it's Matt Franks calling. Good morning, Matt. Any progress on finding a solution? Yes, I'd like you to complete all the necessary paperwork, including only the legal photos Larry obtained. Split everything evenly. I hesitated. Do you think we should sell the house? Yes, we used a low-interest loan from my trust to purchase it, so essentially we've been paying ourselves all along. We'll divide any proceeds from the sale, but I'll repay the full loan amount and the accumulated interest. Also, please allocate $200,000 from my trust to Kells as a considerate payment for her services. It might soften her stance if she knows she won't be left destitute. I'm seeking primary custody of Kate. I understand it won't be simple, but perhaps Larry can uncover some damning information about Jason that diminishes his suitability as a father figure. I've heard he was quite the fraternity standout in college. Maybe he got carried away with some of his exploits. Please have Larry investigate. I have a contingency plan for Kate. If primary custody isn't granted, draft the most generous shared custody arrangement imaginable for me. I paused to allow Bill to catch up. Additionally, I intend to file a lawsuit against Jason for alienation of love and affection. I want to involve his wife, Shannon, in this ordeal as well, ensuring she's fully informed of the situation within legal bounds. On that note, I'd like you to devise another infidelity divorce plan for her. I'll cover the expenses. While we can serve them both in the exclusion room, it's unlikely to yield significant results. I'll also need Shannon to sign a contract with me. I can start drafting the forms, but without her consent or details, I'm unable to proceed further. Bill clarified, I see what you're aiming for. It's about stirring the pot a bit, and while we're at it, I want to sue Kelsey's employer for permitting her affair with her boss. While there may not be a moral clause in their manual, it's dubious for any company to overlook such misconduct under their supervision, especially given his position as her direct superior. It's doubtful this will go far, but let's rattle the cage and see what unfolds. Understood, Matt. This will incur substantial costs up front and potentially escalate. We're looking at extensive manpower here, and if this escalates further, I want to ensure they don't profit unjustly. As my dad used to say, engaging a lawyer is essentially negotiating the price. Bill chuckled at my sarcastic remark about lawyers, remarking, Your dad was a wise man indeed. Remember, you're not obligated to provide her any funds from your trust. Your prenuptial agreement is rock solid. I understand, Bill. But after reflecting on it over the weekend, I've decided that if I don't leave her in financial straits, she might be more inclined to meet my terms. And truthfully, she deserves it. She put in hard work and supported me. We were both saving for our future together. I figured it might give her an edge over Jason so she won't have to rely on him as much when she's on her own. She deserves better. But there's no way I'm giving that cheating scoundrel Jason more than he's already taken from me in life. I mean, my wife should have been enough. As I spoke, I felt a surge of anger, thinking about how Jason had seized the life that should have been mine. Despite the circumstances, I always strived to be fair in my relationships and wanted to ensure I treated Kelsey with fairness, even if she didn't reciprocate. My solace is knowing that Caitlin will understand my actions later on when she sees how our family fell apart. Before I forget, Bill, hold off on any filings for now. I want everything prepared and ready to go, but I prefer to wait for her to make the initial move. This way I'll have more time with Kate in our family home. I know there will come a point when I have to act, but I want to delay until the very last moment when I can't bear it any longer. Got it. We'll keep everything undated and notarized until you're ready. I work from home on Saturday mornings, so feel free to call me then too. We can't file until Monday morning anyway, but I'll have someone ready to serve them as soon as the doors open. Okay, that's the plan. Goodbye for now. I retrieved Larry's business card from my pocket and dialed the number. Larry, it's Matt Franks. How's it going? I'm good, he replied. Are you ready for some dirty work? Well, kind of, but I need you to hold off until I give the green light. No problem, Matt. What's the game plan? Can we meet up? Yes, give me an hour. Sounds good, I responded. I was already waiting when he pulled into the parking lot. After grabbing some coffee and a snack, he sat across from me. I want to gather all the damning evidence. Photos, videos, recordings, everything. And we need to figure out a way to anonymously send it to Shannon Stanton, perhaps through email. No problem. I know someone who operates on the dark web, Larry said, and that's it. How about posting a video on a XXX site or sending nasty messages to Kelsey's parents or co-workers? Man, he's devious, I thought. No, Kels still has to stay in town. I wouldn't want her to be so humiliated that she leaves town with Kate. And despite everything, I still love her, even if she doesn't love me anymore. I slid an envelope containing $5,000 in cash across the table. This should help you get started, but let me know if you need more. Larry accepted the money and glanced at me. I think $3,000 will suffice. He may be tough, but at least he's straightforward. Consider the rest as an advance. I might require your expertise later. Remember, stay on standby until I contact you. I want to catch them off guard, and I have my reasons for allowing them to make the first move. Oh, and we also need to gather information on his wife's health issues. Her medical background could impact our decisions down the line. Can you handle that? Absolutely, Larry replied. And Bill mentioned you were looking into Jason's college years. I'm hoping to uncover something useful if custody becomes a battle. Larry nodded, jotting down a few notes on his pad. After finishing our coffee and exchanging stories about his past experiences as a cop and people we might have known, we shook hands and parted ways. That was 3 months ago. My thoughts returned to the present as Bill arrived, followed shortly by his assistant and Larry. Ready to proceed? Bill inquired once we were all seated. Yes, it seems that way. Larry, do we have any indication if Kelsey has sought legal counsel? As far as I know, no, I replied. I quickly checked her email after Bill's call and didn't find anything. I'll take a closer look today and should know by Monday morning. Larry grinned and gave me a knowing wink. And what about Jason? Any skeletons in his closet? I asked with a glimmer of hope. Well, he was under investigation during his time in the fraternity. Allegations involving date abduction medications and underage girls at parties, Larry revealed. I've received copies of everything and have already handed them over to Bill, I informed the group. Bill glanced up, confirming, I have them in case we need them for the custody hearing. Retrieving the documents we had been diligently working on for the past few months, he indicated where I needed to sign. After signing, Bill's assistant notarized them, and I turned to address the group. Larry, can you find out who Shannon Stanton has hired as her lawyer and inform Bill? Bill, if he's competent, could you share our legal file with him? What if he's not up to par? Bill inquired. Then we'll figure out a way to connect you with Shannon. But I prefer we handle it properly. Bill, can I collect the documents on Monday afternoon? I plan to hand the paperwork to Kelsey personally first, informing her of the situation, and then you can officially serve her on Tuesday. Bill nodded understandingly and conferred with his assistant about preparing the server for Tuesday. I believe we can begin reaching out to Shannon since she'll likely be updated soon. Bill, you can share the file with Shannon's lawyer on Monday afternoon, provided it doesn't interfere with my discussion with Kelsey on Monday evening. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling deeply. Things should be fully underway by Wednesday. Matt, have you considered where Kelsey will stay on Monday night? Bill inquired suddenly. Would it be an issue for her to stay at the house for a few days? No, unless a restraining order is obtained and she consents, I wouldn't share a bed with her. Legally, it shouldn't be an issue, but it might make you uneasy. I'd worry about how a less scrupulous lawyer might exploit this information, Bill added. All right, I'll give her a week to find alternate accommodations. We're not carnal at the moment, so I don't foresee any issues. Oh, you mean sharing the same bed? But our documents grant me temporary control of the house and custody of Kate, right? Yes, until her attorney files a motion to overturn the arrangement, or until we all reach a consensus. I meant actually sharing the same bed. It might give off an odd vibe, Bill explained. Don't worry, we're not sharing a bed currently. Hey Larry, what did you uncover about Shannon's health? She's been battling depression and bipolar disorder for years. Apparently, the medications have dampened her libido, so Mr. Wonderful went searching elsewhere. I'm not sure we want to know how you obtained this information, I remarked. Larry simply grinned and shook his head while Bill pretended to be shocked. Bill, does this have any relevance to our situation? I inquired. Not at the moment. It might become significant later when we address guardianship and determine living arrangements, Bill clarified. As Bill jotted down notes on his iPad, we conversed for a few more minutes before gradually concluding our strategy session and resuming our respective tasks for the day. I felt somewhat disheartened for the remainder of the weekend, weighed down by the impending responsibilities awaiting me on Monday. Kelsey remained oblivious to any changes, as expected. On Sunday, I arranged for my aunt to pick up Caitlin from school on Monday and care for her overnight, allowing me to discuss important family matters with Kelsey. They resided on a farm outside the city, and Caitlin enjoyed playing with their dogs and tending to the animals. She'll be taking Caitlin to school on Tuesday, and I've decided we'll break the news to Caitlin on Tuesday evening. I informed Caitlin about these arrangements, and while she was excited, she seemed a bit puzzled about why she had to wait until Tuesday. I simply explained that Mom and Dad needed some personal time to discuss everything. She reluctantly accepted it. I slept in the spare room again, and once more Kelsey didn't mention it. She visibly sighed with relief when she saw me heading there before bed. As I lay there Sunday night, running through my checklist and reviewing my plan, I eventually drifted off to sleep. On Monday morning, I contacted my VP of operations and requested a week off. I also reached out to my assistant and senior production manager to provide them with any necessary details while I was away. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I entered Bill's office and unexpectedly found Larry there. I noticed a stack of papers on the desk, and the bustling activity in the office indicated that everyone was occupied. Matt, we filed the paperwork at the courthouse this morning, and here are Kelsey's documents as you requested. We've arranged for the official filing at your home around 9 a.m. on Tuesday. Is that suitable? Bill inquired, handing me the envelopes. Yes, that should work. I'll try to persuade her to take the rest of the week off. I'll let you know if that changes, I responded. Great, that's settled. Bill paused momentarily to gather his thoughts before continuing. Larry found Shannon's lawyer, and he's quite competent. So I forwarded him our files, and he seemed quite eager. He might counter-sue for infidelity and aim for a larger share of their assets than just a 50-50 split. He assured me he won't take any action until tomorrow morning. So, everything seems fine. "Okay, gentlemen, are we forgetting anything?" I inquired. "Just a little update. It appears Kelsey has an appointment with her lawyer next week, based on her calls and emails. And Matt, please don't hesitate to reach out if you need further assistance, all right?" Larry asked cautiously, earning another sharp glance from Bill regarding the ongoing situation. "Great, sounds good," I responded, hoping I wouldn't have to delve any deeper into this mess. I guess it's all in Kelsey and Jason's hands now. Leaving Bill's office, I sent a text to Kelsey. "Kels, will you be home by 5:30 tonight?" "Why? What's going on?" she replied. "Nothing serious. I was a bit preoccupied over the weekend and wanted to catch up tonight. I arranged for Aunt Alex to pick up Kate and keep her overnight. I thought I'd bring dinner home. Any requests?" "How thoughtful. Ready? I'll have dinner ready at 5:30. I felt guilty for setting her up like this, but it had become a common occurrence for me lately. I hoped she would interpret it as me making an extra effort to be affectionate. Kelsey arrived home around 5:15 and changed while I set the table and served the food. I poured us each a glass of wine and sat at the table, waiting for her. She took a long sip from her glass as she joined me. We shared the food and engaged in light conversation, and she seemed completely unaware of what was about to unfold. "What's your schedule like for the rest of the week?" I inquired after we finished eating, both of us freely picking at our favorite dishes. "Do you want to make plans?" she asked, glancing at me sideways. "No, I thought you might want to take a week off after we talk," I stated in a flat tone, trying to keep any emotion out of my voice. "Why should I do that?" "You'll understand, Kels," I said, placing the envelope on the table in front of her. She glanced at it and then back at me, taking another sip of wine. "I'm aware of Jason and your intentions to file for divorce," I stated bluntly. She coughed slightly, surprised, and stared at me with a blank expression. I could see her mind working, trying to comprehend how I found out and what action she could take to slow me down. "What scam?" she finally grasped, referring to the meeting with the lawyer next week and Jason's filing against Shannon. "I know you're in love with him and plan to take Kate and leave me." I opened the bag and slid some photos toward her. Her eyes widened as she set her glass down and picked up the photos, scanning through them. I noticed her eyes glistening and heard her start to hiccup slightly, a sign of her emotional distress. "I'm so sorry, Matthew. I never wanted any of this to happen. I don't know what else to say," she murmured, her gaze fixed on the table. "I understand, Kels. I've been aware of your intentions for months now. I've had time to come to terms with it to some extent. It's incredibly disappointing and painful for me," I responded solemnly. I took a moment to compose myself, attempting to control my rising anger. "The only thing I need to know is if there's something I did or didn't do that pushed you toward Jason," I pressed. "Oh God, no," she exclaimed, meeting my gaze briefly before looking away. "I think it just happened out of guilt and shame. You didn't do anything. You were a wonderful husband and father. I just fell for him," she confessed, her voice breaking. I felt a mix of disappointment and relief. It seemed there was nothing I could do. If she had simply fallen out of love with me and chosen Jason, he had evidently taken enough time to win her over and push me out, leaving me powerless to stop it. Our marriage had reached its end, and all that remained was paperwork. I presented the terms of the divorce and handed them to her. "Here's the proposed agreement. I've already filed my application, so you won't need to do that. If you agree to my terms, the main points include upholding the prenuptial agreement, meaning my trust is off the table. I'm offering to sell off our joint assets and split them equally, including the house. Since I filed first, I'm requesting full custody of Caitlin and minimal child support. Of course, you'll have a flexible visitation schedule. I'll keep her on my insurance, but you'll need to arrange for your own. You can keep your 401k and any investments from the marriage, as well as the inheritance from your mom. I don't want to take what's rightfully yours. We'll divide the investments we made together. Kate and I will remain in the house until it's sold. Additionally, I'm providing $200,000 from my trust to help you get settled. I suggest you create a prenuptial agreement to safeguard your assets if you proceed with Jason. I want to ensure you're self-sufficient, so I'm not asking for spousal support." I paused to let her process what I'd outlined. "I think I should have custody of Caitlin. She'll need her mother as she grows up," she asserted. "I wholeheartedly agree. But you can be involved through visits and calls. Frankly, I don't trust Jason with our daughter. I know he plans to win her over with gifts and charm. Since he couldn't have his own child, he wants mine. I'm already generous in letting him have you, but he won't have our daughter. I understand you'll want to discuss custody further. Let's let the lawyers handle it and try to keep it civil. I offered custody as a peace offering after seeing Kate's reaction during her discussion with Jason. He wouldn't damage her, but that's for you to decide. Separating her from her mother isn't the solution. For now, she'll stay with me until we find a better arrangement. You can stay in the master bedroom for a few nights or a week while you figure things out. Kelsey, my love for you hasn't wavered. I envisioned us conquering the world together, but your actions are tearing me apart, and I'm at a loss. My world feels like it's crumbling, and I'm striving to handle this with fairness and kindness. I genuinely don't want to inflict the pain on you that I'm feeling. But trust me, if you escalate things or let Jason meddle, I won't hesitate to respond in kind. And dear, I have resources at my disposal that neither of you possess. My demeanor shifted and she could sense the frustration in my voice. I can play hardball if pushed. You've seen this side of me before, so please, let's keep this conflict at a manageable level and allow the lawyers to navigate it. I truly want to maintain civility and respect in our interactions. It's crucial for Caitlin to see us being civil. I envision both of us playing active roles in our daughter's life. I implore you, I don't want our situation to devolve into a prolonged, bitter battle. I'm available until the end of the week, and according to legal protocol, you must be formally served, which is set to happen here at the house at 9 a.m. I didn't want to put you in an awkward spot at work, so you may want to consider taking a few days off as well. I know it'll be tough for both of us to share the same space, but I thought perhaps we could sit down with Caitlin tomorrow night or keep her home on Wednesday to explain the situation. What are your thoughts? Kelsey had lost her appetite and appeared visibly unwell, perhaps realizing the gravity of her actions. She had no one to blame but herself. I was content and oblivious until she disrupted it all. She glanced at me, looking bewildered, and conceded, "Matt, you clearly had a plan and outmaneuvered us. I'm not sure how, but you did. I'll notify work first thing and be home until Wednesday at least." "Do you think Aunt Alex can keep Caitlin tomorrow night too? Maybe we'll keep her home from school tomorrow and bring her back Wednesday morning so we can talk." My investigator, Larry, uncovered everything after I sensed something was amiss. "I'll call Aunt Alex right away. It seems like a good idea." Kelsey gave a subtle nod when I mentioned Larry, while she gathered some papers. I bid her goodnight and assumed she needed time alone to process. I watched as she retreated to the master bedroom, locking the door, which didn't bother me, as I had already moved most of my belongings to the spare room. I phoned my aunt, explaining the family situation, and she agreed to keep Caitlin an extra night, dropping her off Wednesday morning. I also informed Caitlin, who was puzzled but accepting. I assured her that my mom and I would explain everything. On Wednesday, as I tidied up and prepared for bed, I heard Kelsey murmuring on the phone behind the closed door, followed by quiet sobs as she mourned our broken marriage. Early the next morning, I heard Kelsey downstairs, getting ready for work. At precisely 9 a.m., she accepted the package, excluding the sensitive materials. Shortly after, she grabbed her belongings and left without specifying her destination, presumably to meet Jason, her lawyer, or someone else sympathetic to her plight. Later in the day, Bill called to update me that both Jason and their company had received our legal claims. Surprisingly, Shannon had also countersued Jason around the same time. Bill stressed the importance of remaining vigilant, as Jason had apparently made threats against me. Although I never anticipated Jason acting recklessly given his gains, I took precautions. I retrieved my .45 ACP from the weapon safe, ensured it was loaded, cocked, and locked, then placed it on the chair while I watched TV. A few hours later, while standing at the sink, I spotted a black BMW pulling into my driveway, with an enraged Jason jumping out and retrieving a baseball bat from the back. Sensing danger, I hurried back to my chair where my cell phone was and dialed emergency. Feeling safer with the door locked, I reported to the operator that my wife's boyfriend was in the driveway with a baseball bat. As I heard a second car pull up outside, accompanied by screams and voices indicating Kelsey's presence, a high-pitched screech pierced the air. I jumped as my front door shattered from the impact, and Jason burst inside, screaming threats at the top of his lungs. With my hand on the pistol grip, I remained calm. Jason swung the bat wildly as Kelsey screamed outside, pleading with him to stop. "I took your wife, and now I will eliminate you and take your daughter too," he yelled furiously. I allowed him to advance another 5 feet before drawing my weapon. His narrowed eyes indicated poor judgment. Although his bat was raised above his head, it seemed unlikely to be effective. At a distance of 25 feet, the weapon shot from the chamber was deafening. I was trained to aim for my targets 3 times, relying on instinct. The second shot followed a split second after the first. Jason slowed down, perhaps due to momentum, and stumbled by the time the third round was fired. Though I noticed movement at the door, I remained focused on my task. The bullet pierced the splintered front door, narrowly missing Kelsey's head. She escaped without injury. Jason fell to his knees before collapsing on his stomach. The area echoed with screams, and the weapon shots seemed louder than expected. Sirens wailed as responding officers approached. Unsure of the situation's severity, they placed Kelsey on her stomach and handcuffed her by the open door, her cries continuing. Shocked by the unfolding events, I finally noticed the weapon aimed at me and the officer commanding, "Stop! Drop the weapon!" Coming to my senses, I complied and followed his orders. The following 2 weeks were a whirlwind of chaos and stress. Jason was declared dead at the scene. Later, I found out through police reports and eyewitnesses that he received both my lawsuit and updated divorce papers from his wife simultaneously. It didn't take him long to figure out that the incriminating photos came from me. Kelsey stood beside him as he opened the envelope from his wife and confirmed that she, too, had a set of those photographs. Shortly after, they were summoned to the vice president's office, where they confessed to their affair, unaware of the consequences. Realizing that my lawsuit against the company would likely fail, the management decided to terminate the managing director for engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate, which they promptly did. In Jason's eyes, I became the embodiment of evil, and he believed I deserved punishment for thwarting his plans. Grabbing one of his souvenir bats from the office, he set off for my house. Kelsey spotted him through the conference room window on the second floor and guessed his destination. She intercepted him in our driveway, attempting to calm him down before any injury was done to me. Unbeknownst to them, I had been forewarned of their arrival and was prepared. Kelsey ended up with a black eye when Jason struck her while she tried to prevent him from entering. Other than that, she sustained no further injuries, but endured months of nightmares. Amidst police interrogations, legal proceedings, and courtroom appearances, I spoke with her briefly, but we never delved into a deep discussion about the events that transpired in our home. Kelsey was a mere shadow of her former self, having lost her husband, lover, and daughter in less than 24 hours. She never fully recovered. Kelsey remained in touch throughout the divorce proceedings and perhaps for about a month after its conclusion. Surprisingly, she never enlisted a lawyer or contested the divorce, allowing me to easily secure custody of Caitlin. However, to my surprise, she never fulfilled her part of the financial settlement. Bill held onto it for her, but eventually returned it to me a year later. She never returned to our home and instead stayed with family until she vanished. Despite a few supervised visits with Caitlin, they were often awkward or unproductive. Regardless, I ensured Caitlin was available for every scheduled visit, whether Kelsey confirmed attendance or not. She showed up roughly every 4th visit. I learned that Kelsey had developed a dependency on painkillers and other prescribed medications to manage her mental well-being. By the time she disappeared, she was unemployed, isolated, and destitute. Neither Caitlin nor I, nor anyone she knew, had any means of contacting her, and she ceased all communication with us. We were left without a wife and mother. Eventually, we sold the house and purchased another in Caitlin's school district, striving to rebuild our lives. Both Caitlin and I sought counseling to cope with the trauma. While I attended for 6 months, I eventually had to suppress the pain and move forward. I had a daughter to care for and a life to lead. Caitlin underwent counseling for several years, intermittently, largely due to her response to the divorce and Kelsey's disappearance. She grappled with numerous psychological challenges. It took me 3 years to gather my bearings enough to consider dating again. A few months later, I encountered a remarkable woman named Jo, who was compassionate and understanding regarding Caitlin's and my circumstances. Our courtship progressed much slower and longer than either of us desired, but eventually evolved into a physical relationship, leading to marriage roughly 16 months later. Jo and I nurtured Caitlin as our own daughter, but opted not to expand our family further. Over time, our lives stabilized and flourished. Our only hurdles centered around significant milestones in Caitlin's life, such as her high school and college graduations. I enlisted Larry's help multiple times in attempts to locate Kelsey, yet every lead proved fruitless. The prevailing belief was that she likely met an unfortunate demise in solitude and despair. It was a harrowing ordeal, but we persevered as best we could and moved forward. I was grateful for the opportunity to devise a strategy and enlist the right assistance to implement it effectively.